Hi, I'm Jeff Schaefer. Today we're going to talk about how to use memorized views in X-Plane 11. They're a very useful tool and one that I didn't know about until I just stumbled across it in the menus. So, the very first thing, I'm going to show you what kind of joystick I'm using. And right here, this is the SciTech X52. It's been around for a long time. It's a good joystick. I've had mine for years and it's been functioning just fine. So, there's a couple of buttons here I use for views. I use this button up here for a special view. These buttons make up most of my views. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 there. That paddle goes up and down. And then finally, if you look on the front there, you can see that little hat switch. Here it is front on, and that's where I put a couple of other views. You can put views wherever you want. I'm just going to show you how I use mine. So first thing though, before I even show you which buttons do what and how I put them there, we need to map buttons to both set the view and to then show the view. So I'm going up here to settings, and there's my joystick. This is what we're going to use to map the view, like when we want to display, when we want to go to that view, that position. But keyboard is how we're going to actually set the views. And so what I'm going to do is I just type in mem, and then you see these memorized 3D cockpit locations. So it'll take up to 20 of these, which is amazing. We're only going to use, I think, 10 or 11. I can't remember how many. So position 1, that's going to be that little blue button that's at the top of the joystick. And you can see I actually have it already set here as Control Numpad 0. So I'm holding this, it's actually the right hand control button, probably doesn't matter which one. And then I'm hitting the 0. And see how it went to insert? So I want to hit turn on the num lock on my keyboard, and that'll allow me to make it be Control and Numpad 0. Then from there, I'm making number 2 into Control 1, and I know that's kind of weird. Why isn't the 0? Why isn't 1, 1? It's because these don't actually matter, like which one is number 1, which one's number 2. You just need to set them in an order that makes sense to you. So to me, it makes sense to go 0, start at 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So I have position 2 is set to 1, 3 is 2, 4 is 3, so on. You go down here, position 9 is 8. Position 10 is numpad 9, so we've gone through all the numbers. Now I'm going to end up needing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I only have 10 here, because 0 counts as 1, so that could almost be number 10. So I need one more for 11. So I'm going to put that in under Control and asterisk, and that's the asterisk at the top of the numpad, like it says. So that's it there. I'm ready to start memorizing positions. The next thing to do, apparently the autopilot did something there, that's okay. The next thing to do is to choose where the positions are going to be. Now, my most important position is this sort of heads-up view. And that's the one I put way up high on the joystick, and it sort of is like if you were flying in the real plane and you just real quick needed to look up and look outside. That's where you want to be. It's sort of your primary VFR forward view. So right about here is good. So I put my head position there. I'm using the right mouse button to just move the camera where I want it. I wouldn't zoom from here and set it at a zoom. If I wanted to be farther forward, I'd press the period to slide forward in the cockpit or slide back. And so I'm going to put it right about there. You can use the arrow keys to go up, down, left, right. When I set this on most planes, I like to be able to see a little bit of the cowl there. And that's not always possible, but when it is, I like to do it. So this is the position that I'll land and take off from, and like I said, if I need to look up real quick. So Control Numpad 0. Now the rest of them, that's Control Numpad 0 right there. That's the one I just set. The rest of these paddles, the next 6, 1 through 6, I'm going to set sort of with an eye towards IFR flying. So the first one, number 1, is sort of my IFR primary view, which is right about here. And sometimes I leave a little bit in the top, but usually I don't. I mean, even right now, you can see in level flight, I just see the sky, so I wouldn't really get any information out of this view. I'd have to be like way up here because the glare shield's so high. So I might as well just block it out, and I can still see a little out the side if I'm looking for ground clutter. So this is probably a good position 1, and I'm going to go through these kind of fast. I'm not going to make them perfect because that'll take longer. Position 2, the position 1 is up, like it's this paddle up. Position 2 is this paddle down, so I like to sort of make these mimic the position in the cockpit. So the first one's up over here. Let's go down for position 2, and we'll put it on these switches. And I want to kind of line it up so I can see most of the labeling and be a little bit forward there. So that's probably a pretty good spot. That's position 2. Position 3 is this one up. And on a lot of planes, there's an overhead panel up here, and that's where I would always put position 3, pointed at the overhead panel. This plane doesn't have one, so, you know, maybe I'll just make position 3 kind of centered in the cockpit. But when it has an overhead panel, it's really nice to have that. You grab that center paddle, flip it up, and you go look straight up. Likewise, the center down, I like to bring me sort of down, looking at the floor, whatever's down there. So we have fuel selectors here, and we also have these cowl flaps, and I want to be able to move these as well. So, like if I was straight vertical to them, I wouldn't really, it's going to mess me up moving the rotor trim. There we go. I wouldn't really be able to grab them, and as you saw, it also conflicts with the rotor trim. I can't really tell, you know, which way this is going. I want to be able to see the label open and closed, and easily move them up and down. And at the same time, I also need to be able to see the fuel selector. Because ideally, you know, when you do these views, you don't have to then grab the mouse and move your head around as well. It seems like a simple thing, but, you know, it actually is kind of, it gives the plane a nice feel being able to flip the view there, use the mouse to grab whatever you need to, but you don't have to turn your head, or turn your, you know, simulated head in the plane. So this will be position 1, 2, 3, 4. Position 5 sometimes will be some stuff over here, but in our case, I'm going to actually put position 5 on engine stuff. So I want this, because that's part of the engine. I want this, that's part of the engine, and then I need all this stuff as well. So that's position 5. And position 6, actually with position 5, the problem is that it's nice to be able to set the controls as well. So I'm going to actually go a little bit up and looking down, so I can also move these around. That's position 5. Position 6 we'll put into like our radios and autopilot and our transponder there. So I'm going to zoom out or back out just a little because I want to get all these buttons, all those buttons. We won't really need the ADF ever, but just why not? That's position 6. So let me show you this real quick. Let's say we were flying right now and I just wanted to look out the front real quick. So I'm going to hit this button. I almost missed a step there. I have to set those buttons first, so let's do that right now. Alright, we're going to set these buttons. So this is the button that I clicked for that forward view. And you can see it's actually set to memorize, so that's going to mess up the one I just did, but that's okay. It should be at go to. So go to 3D cockpit location 1. Let's set the next one. This is also set to memorize, but it should be go to 2. That's good. Let's go out of there. Now what I'm going to do is real quick reset that forward view. So I like to kind of look at the chair here. There it is. Because I want to be pretty far back for that primary flight view. So that was 0. All right, here we go. So now if I'm looking down in the cockpit, I'm going to hit that button, the one at the top of the joystick, the blue one. And boom, it puts me there. I want to go back down to sort of my IFR forward view. I get up on that left paddle. Then I want to look down at these buttons, the switches. That's down on the left paddle. There's up center, down center, up to the right, and down to the right. So you can see, you know, some of these don't move you very far. And in a, you know, this is a light aircraft. This is a bearing. There's not too many places to go with the views. But on a larger plane, a more complex plane, you easily use up all these views, and you know sometimes you're left even wanting more. And then you have more buttons on your joystick, and you can add more if you want. But that's usually what I go with. Then I use the that front little hat switch to get some good like outside view that especially they're good in the pattern. So if I want to look left and right, I use that little hat switch left and right. So for example, The first one on there was number 7, on the numpad at least. And for that, I'm just going to have that look kind of forward and up. And there's not too much of a use for that, but in this case, there's not different forward views that I need since I only really have the one. I mean, sometimes I could use that to kind of come back here and get an overview of everything. And maybe I'll do that. So that's number 7. Number 8, I believe, was to the left, and if I get it backwards, I'll fix it. So when I do my left side view and my right side view, I like to have it so I can see some of the wing, and I need to look up a little bit because when you're in a turn, you know, the horizon isn't down here, it's up here, and you want to be able to see, you know, some airport or this or that. It's also nice to be a little bit towards the front, and this varies, and sometimes you wish you had more views, but you know, a lot of times when you're turning, you're looking for something that's kind of 45 degrees off. So that'll be number 8. Turn this way, same thing. You can see my head position here is unrealistic. I mean, you'd have to really crouch to get your head down here, but it's okay. That's something that's a little easier in the real plane and a little harder in the simulator, is the view. Of course, if you have VR, then, you know, you shouldn't even be watching this video because you're able to just look around anywhere. So sometimes I like to use the other one to kind of just look behind me. So right here you can see the tail back there. You can sort of see out both windows. It's an okay backwards view, and that was that asterisk. And you know, that does come in handy. So if you're flying, say you're navigating, you know, a big mistake people make is they don't look behind them and say, you know, maybe you just took off and the airport's right there out the window, but you're looking out the front saying, oh, I can't find my checkpoint, I don't know where I am. Well, you're not lost yet because the airport's right there. So let's try out those views. So I'm going to hit down on that hat switch or forward. So that gives me that kind of overview. Left, right, and we got left and right correct, so that's good. There's right, and look behind. And then heads up view, that's that button. We got the paddles. So that's it. The switches are memorized. It's plane specific, so every plane I go to, you know, these controls still work the same way. The memorize on the numpad and the buttons on the joystick. So I can just hop into any plane now and set these, and it'll use the same buttons, but the views can be different for every single plane. So I've really gotten a lot of mileage out of this system in X-Plane, and I hope you do too. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm Jeff Schaefer. See ya.